I never thought my worst nightmare would come from across the street. But the day the HOA president cut through my nephew's treehouse, with him still inside, I learned just how far Karen Dunn was willing to go. She called it removing an eyesore. I called it nearly killing an 8-year-old. My name is Mark Hale. Most days that doesn't mean much, it's just a name on paperwork. But on the day everything came crashing down, it meant one thing. I was the man who had to protect my family, no matter the cost. Since getting back from the army, I moved in with my sister to help raise her boy, Evan. His dad works out of state, gone for months at a time. My sister worries, it's her job as a mom. My job? To be steady. To keep things running. To build what needs building and fix what gets broken. That morning, Evan and I were building. Not just hammer and nails, we were building memories. A treehouse, 5 feet off the ground between 2 sturdy oaks by the lake. Strong posts, deck screws, thick planks. I made sure it was safe. He was the foreman, bossing me around with all the authority an 8-year-old could muster. He called it Fort Kickbutt, a name his mom hated, but I defended as strategic defense. The sun was warm, sawdust filled the air, and the rhythm of work made the world feel right. Until she showed up. Karen Dunn. HOA president. She believed perfection meant uniform lawns, no toys in yards, no joy outside the rulebook. She'd left nasty notes before, warning that the fort violated covenants. I laughed, used them to light the grill. But that day, she didn't bring paper, she brought her attitude. She marched up in a power suit, glaring at our half-built castle. "Mark," she snapped, "this is your final warning. That thing violates 17 different covenants." Evan froze. I smiled easy. "Morning, Karen." 17? Impressive, you must have been up all night with the rulebook." Her lips thinned. "I'm not joking. You have 24 hours to dismantle it, or the association will act." I shrugged, checked a 2x4 for straightness. "And what exactly are you going to do? Fine us $50? Send another letter?" She jabbed her red-polished finger at the fort. "We'll see. This neighborhood has standards. That thing lowers property values." I thought of what I'd seen overseas, the real problems people faced. And here was a woman ready to wage war over a child's fort. "It's for my nephew," I said flatly. "Leave it alone." She huffed, spun on her heel, and stormed off. Evan whispered, "Uncle Mark, will she break it?" I ruffled his hair. "No, buddy. She's just full of hot air. Now let's finish this roof." We worked another hour. Evan played king of his castle inside, while I measured rafters outside. That's when I heard it, a shrill, mechanical whine. My stomach dropped. The saw. I turned and froze. Karen was back. She wasn't yelling this time. She wasn't threatening. She was cutting. The blade of her reciprocating saw screamed as it chewed into one of the support posts. "Karen, stop." I yelled, sprinting toward her. "Evan's inside. Stop." She didn't even look at me. Her face was hard, determined. The wood cracked, splintered, and gave way. The fort collapsed in a sickening crash. Evan's scream tore through me. Not play. Not pretend. Real terror. I dove into the wreckage, ripping boards away with my bare hands. "Evan, I've got you, buddy." His cries led me to him, pinned under a beam, leg twisted wrong, shirt torn. Neighbors rushed out. Paul called 911. Mrs. Gwynn stood frozen on her porch, horrified. Karen? She just stood there, saw dangling in her hand, a strange satisfaction flickering on her face. Sirens wailed. EMTs rushed Evan into an ambulance, his small hand gripping mine. "She broke Fort Kickbutt," he whispered, pale with pain. I squeezed back, steady as I could. "We'll rebuild it, buddy. Stronger than before." Deputy Torres arrested Karen on the spot for aggravated assault and child endangerment. She shrieked about property values, lawyers, even name-dropped the mayor. None of it mattered. The cuffs clicked shut, and for the first time, she wasn't in control. But as satisfying as that moment was, I knew it wasn't over. A piece of paper, a no-contact order, wouldn't stop her. If Karen Dunn wanted power, she'd try again. That night, My house became a command center. Evan was in the hospital, his leg broken but healing. I sat in silence, anger simmering, until I called Paul. Together, we started gathering evidence, doorbell cameras, driveway footage, body cam records. And when I saw the footage, when I saw Karen look right at Evan's head in that window before cutting, I knew this wasn't just negligence. It was intent. And intent meant one thing. We were going to bury Karen Dunn in evidence so deep that not even the HOA could dig her out. I crossed the street to where Mrs. Gwynn was watering her roses. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were sharp. A widow, 40 years on this block. She'd seen it all, until now. "Mrs. Gwynn," I said gently, "would you be willing to walk me through what you saw?" She set the watering can down and fixed me with a look that could cut glass. "I'd be happy to, Mark. That woman is a menace. What she did to that sweet boy, it was evil." We sat on her porch swing. I had a notepad. She didn't need prompts. She described everything: the color of the saw, the shrill scream of its blade, the determined look on Karen's face. She even remembered what shirt I was wearing. "I watched you and Evan all morning," she said. "It was so lovely, seeing you two build that thing together." When I saw her march over with that weapon, I knew she was up to no good. I almost called 911 right then. Her statement matched the doorbell footage perfectly. She was the narrator for our silent movie. By nightfall, I had it all cut together. The doorbell feed on one side, Torres's body cam on the other. Clinical titles marked the seconds. 10:14 and 22 seconds a.m. Suspect approaches structure. 10 hours 14 minutes and 28 seconds. Victim visible inside structure. 10 hours 14 minutes and 48 seconds. Suspect begins cutting primary support. Clinical. Unemotional. That was the point. The evidence told its own brutal story. I made copies. One for the deal, one for my lawyer, one for my sister. She cried when she saw it, but it wasn't just grief, it was fury. "You're going to get her, right, Mark?" she whispered. I looked at Karen Dunn's frozen face on the screen, captured mid-sneer. "Yeah," I said. "We are." We had the what and the how, but not the why. Why would anyone risk everything to destroy a kid's fort? The HOA called a special community meeting. Officially, it was to reaffirm neighborhood standards. Unofficially, it was damage control. The story was already on the local news. Vans lined the street. The board booked the elementary school gym, hoping to calm the storm. I went with Paul. My sister stayed at the hospital. Evan was getting his superhero cast. The gym smelled like floor wax and nerves. The board looked like deer in headlights. Arthur, the vice president, shuffled papers and stammered through a bland speech about safety. Then he opened the floor. It was chaos. Shouting about liability, property values, safety. I just sat in the back, listening. Then the doors slammed open. Karen Dunn stormed in. A collective gasp swept the room. She was violating a no-contact order in front of 100 witnesses, and she didn't care. Her hair was wild, her eyes unhinged. She stormed the stage, ripped the mic from Arthur's hands, and screamed into it. "I'm the victim here. I've dedicated years to this community, and this is the thanks I get." The crowd buzzed. Torres, posted at the meeting, moved in calm and steady, hand on his radio. But I wasn't watching Torres. I was watching the young man near the exit, Karen's son Kyle. Hot-headed, trouble-prone. His fists were clenched, his eyes twitching. A powder keg waiting for a spark. Karen jabbed a finger toward me. "He's the problem. Him and his trashy shack. He provoked me." Torres climbed the stage. "Ma'am, you're in violation of a court order. You need to come with me now." But before he could touch her, Kyle snapped. "Get your hands off my mom," he roared, yanking a revolver from his waistband. The gym froze. Torres shifted his stance, calm and controlled. The two deputies by the door moved like a unit, flanking. "Son," Torres said evenly, "put the gun down." Kyle's voice cracked. "You're not taking her. None of you are." The crowd held its breath. The female deputy spoke, steady as stone. "Nobody wants to hurt you, Kyle. Just put it on the floor. We can talk this through." For a long, taut moment, it could have gone either way. Then Kyle's shoulders sagged. He lowered the gun and set it on the gym floor. In a blur, the deputies were on him. Cuffed. Secured. No shots fired. Torres cuffed Karen again too. This time, no fight left in her. Just tears and incoherence. They led them both out while the gym sat in stunned silence. Paul leaned toward me. "You were calm through all that?" I shrugged. "Seen worse." But inside I was thinking about Evan. About how Karen's chaos was spreading, infecting her son, endangering everyone. We had her on video, on witness statements, on a court order violation. Now, her son pulling a gun in public. The case was ironclad. But the motive, the real reason behind her obsession, that was still missing. Then an email landed in my inbox. Anonymous. Direct. Check the property sale records for 312 Willow Creek Lane. And ask Arthur why he's so quiet. Willow Creek Lane, directly behind my house. The one that had just sold. The county clerk's site showed the sale closed 2 days before Karen attacked the fort. Record price. Bought by an out-of-state development company. And Arthur, quiet, terrified Arthur. I went to his house. He looked like he'd seen a ghost when he opened the door. "Arthur," I said calmly, "I'm not here to make trouble. I'm here for my nephew. He deserves to know why. And I think you know." He broke. Inside his immaculate living room, he whispered, "She bullied us all. If you stood up to her, she made your life hell. And the house." I pressed. His face collapsed with shame. "The buyers wanted an unobstructed view of the lake. Your fort blocked part of it." He retrieved a manila envelope from his desk and handed it to me. She was getting a kickback. $10,000. The consultant's fee, she called it. The buyers were about to walk because of the view. And just like that, the eyesore excuse was exposed for what it was. Profit, pure and simple. They said your fort was an eyesore. That it ruined the view. Arthur's voice was barely above a whisper as I slid the documents from the envelope. Inside were text chains, emails, call logs, each one a nail in Karen Dunn's coffin. Need to clear the view at 3:10. The structure is an unapproved build. Taking direct action tomorrow morning. Consider the sight lines clean. Another read. The bonus is contingent on a clear view. I will handle it. Tell the buyers to get their checkbook ready. Not a word about Evan. Not a word about safety. Just greed, wrapped in HOA language. $10,000. That was the price tag she put on my nephew's leg. The anger that rose in me wasn't fire, it was ice. Focused. Absolute. The puzzle was complete. This wasn't madness. This was premeditated profit. Arthur wrung his hands. I should have spoken sooner. I was afraid. You did the right thing now, I told him. He wasn't a villain, just weak. But weakness had nearly cost a child his future. I walked out into the afternoon sun, the evidence heavy in my hand. Karen Dunn hadn't bent rules, she'd broken laws. And now I had the proof. At the DA's office, prosecutor Miss Davies scanned the texts. Her eyes hardened. She tapped the page. This is the ball game. Charges escalated. Assault became felony assault. Add-ons for financial gain were on the table. The system would grind at its own slow pace, but the trajectory was set. Karen Dunn was going down. Meanwhile, we filed a claim with her homeowner's insurance, standard procedure. A tree falls, a pipe bursts, your neighbor's kid gets hurt on your property, insurance pays. With video, witness statements, and medical bills, it should have been automatic. Instead, the denial came in a fat envelope. 2 words, willful act. My sister sat at her kitchen table, bills piled high. What does that even mean? I explained it simply. Insurance pays for accidents. A burst pipe. A slip on wet steps. But if you walk over with a saw and cut something down on purpose, that's not an accident. That's intent. They don't insure crime. Her face went pale. So Evans, they won't cover a dime. It all falls on her. Strangely, that was a win. No corporate check would save her. She'd have to bleed personally, civil suit, assets, everything. But pressure creates desperation. And desperate people lash out. Rumors spread, Karen leaving unhinged voicemails, cursing board members, railing against neighbors. She was flailing. And then she made her biggest mistake yet. She went after our witness. Mrs. Gwynn, the linchpin. A 70-something widow with a memory like steel. She'd seen it all. Her testimony was unshakable. So Karen sent Muscle. Her nephew. Same dead eyes as Kyle, but younger, angrier. A petty record. A family enforcer. He caught Mrs. Gwynn in the grocery lot, Tuesday morning. Unfortunately for him, Paul's routine overlapped. He was parked 2 rows away, dash cam humming. The footage was crystal. Mrs. Gwynn placing oranges in her trunk, the hulking figure stepping in, too close, jabbing a finger in her face. Her body recoiling. Fear plain. Paul didn't intervene. He didn't need to. His dash cam caught everything. Even the faint audio, "Forget what you think you saw. Would be a shame if something happened before you changed your statement." Classic intimidation. And a felony. Paul called me voice tight. "Mark, you need to see this." I called Torres directly, sent the file. He called back 10 minutes later. His voice was steel. "I've seen enough. This is conspiracy. Bail's gone." The next day, the emergency hearing was swift and merciless. Mrs. Gwynn sat frail but unbroken. Miss Davies played the footage. The courtroom was silent but for the hiss of the speakers. The judge leaned forward, eyes hard. "Miss Dunn, bail is a privilege. You attempted to corrupt this process through intimidation. Bail is revoked." Gavel. Deputies. Cuffs. Karen Dunn's mouth fell open in shock. For the first time, she realized she wasn't untouchable. Orange was her new power suit. As they led her away, Mrs. Gwynn slipped her hand onto my arm. Her voice trembled but her smile was sharp. "She picked the wrong old lady to mess with." "Yes, ma'am," I said. She sure did. The attempt to silence her had backfired spectacularly. Karen had lost her freedom. Next, she'd lose her title. Arthur, emboldened at last, called a special board meeting. Paul and I stood in the back as he opened the session, voice steady. Quorum present. Motion to remove Karen Dunn for conduct harmful to the association. This time, there was no fear in the room. Only resolve. The boardroom silence shattered when Arthur dropped his line. "Keep her, and the carrier drops our coverage." It landed like a brick. All in favor? 3 hands went up. Her last ally stared at his shoes, then raised his hand too. I brought the gavel down. Done. Audit approved. Fear drained out of the room like smoke through a vent. The criminal trial would come in its own time, a slow train already on the tracks. But for Evan, and for my sister, the civil trial was the battle that mattered. This was about more than guilt. This was about the bills, the trauma, and the long climb toward recovery. Our lawyer, Ben Carter, was calm, meticulous, the kind of man who built his case like an engineer setting steel. He reminded us the bar was lower here. We didn't need, beyond a reasonable doubt, just proof, clear and steady, that Karen Dunn had caused Evan's injuries. With the mountain of evidence we carried, we were ready. The courtroom was small, modern, and quiet. Karen sat at the defense table in a gray suit, stripped of power, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. She avoided eye contact. Ben started simple. He read from the HOA bylaws, showing the jury exactly how enforcement worked. Warnings, fines, legal recourse. Nowhere did it say the president could personally take a saw to someone's property. She hadn't just been malicious. She had acted far beyond her authority. Then the evidence rolled in. The doorbell camera video, played on the big screen, made jurors flinch when the fort collapsed. Deputy Torres's body cam, capturing Karen's excuses as she admitted what she'd done. Mrs. Gwynn's testimony, steady and grandmotherly, her words sharp with truth. The text messages, exposing her financial motive. Brick by brick, Ben built a wall no defense could climb. And then came Evan. He didn't testify in person. Too much weight for an 8-year-old to carry. Instead, his deposition video filled the screen. There he sat, small in his chair, his bright red cast propped on a stool. "What's your name?" Ben asked gently. "Evan." "And how old are you?" 8. His face lit up when he talked about the fort. Me and my Uncle Mark built it. It was Fort Kickbutt. The best fort ever. Then Ben's voice softened. Can you tell us what happened? Evan's smile faded. He stared at his cast. The shaky lady came. That's what he called Karen now. She had a loud buzzing thing. She cut the leg. It got wobbly and it fell on me. Did it hurt? Evan nodded, eyes wet. Yeah. A lot. The video ended. There wasn't a dry eye in the jury box. The defense scrambled, grasping at shadows, stress, safety hazards, blaming me. None of it mattered. The jury had seen the truth through Evan's eyes. After 2 days, closing arguments rang out. Ben ended with a picture of Evan in his hospital bed. This wasn't an accident, he said, his voice steady as stone. It was a choice. Her choice. Now you must make yours, hold her accountable. The jury took less than an hour. The foreman, a calloused construction worker, stood tall. On the question of liability, we, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff. Relief hit like a tide. Medical expenses, past and future, $150,000. Pain and suffering, $500,000. Punitive damages, $1 million. A gasp rippled through the room. Karen slumped, gray and hollow. She had lost everything, her freedom, her reputation, her money. The verdict wouldn't erase Evan's nightmares. But it was justice. Clear and final. The very next morning, the neighborhood showed up. Paul came with his saw. Buddy Bruno with a wheelbarrow full of concrete mix. Others brought tools, lumber, cookies, lemonade. Even Mrs. Gwynn claimed the post of morale foreman. Before long, the whole block was digging, cutting, and laughing as they rebuilt what had been stolen. By noon, Deputy Torres appeared in jeans, carrying a box. Inside, galvanized carriage bolts, the expensive kind. The guys at the station took up a collection, he said simply. We see enough bad. Time to help build something good. By evening, the fort stood taller, stronger, set in concrete, bolted in steel. A rope ladder, a deck, 2 windows. Evan scrambled up with his cast still on, planted on his new castle and shouted, "Thank you." Cheers shook the yard. It wasn't just a fort anymore. It was a monument to resilience. Proof that when one person tears down, a dozen others will rebuild stronger. Months passed. Seasons turned. Evan's cast came off. His scar faded to a line. Karen went to prison. Kyle took probation. Life settled back into ordinary rhythms, school, homework, dinners on time. And then one night at the hardware store I saw her. Karen Dunn. Out on parole, paint thinner in her hand. She looked smaller, gray at the temples, tired. No speeches. No rage. Just a nod between us across the aisle. A nod and nothing more. I turned back to my screws and walked away. The storm had passed. At home, Evan sat under the red plank he had signed, swinging his legs, comic in hand. The fort stood solid, bolts gleaming in the sun, a gift from cops, neighbors, and friends who chose to build instead of break. How far will a man go to defend his own? All the way he must. You stand firm, you gather proof, you keep your people safe. And then you go home, sand the shelves smooth, and keep living. Because life goes on.